Welcome to the Building Savages podcast.
New favorite fitness podcast.
I'm your boy Terrence, aka Building Beast.
I'm Evan Perez, aka EP.
On this podcast, we talk to our fellow coaches, athletes, and everyday gym goers about health, fitness, business, entrepreneurship, self growth, and so much more. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe, or
We'll find you and make you smash the subscribe button. Hope you enjoyed today's topic.
all right, today we are going to give you the Glute Bible to building a dump truck.
Big ass dump truck. Dump truck.
Dumpy, the dumpy.
Dumpy truck. Big thighs saves lives.
Yeah, man. T-shirt just dropped.
Yeah,
Shameless plug.
There's
Shameless plug.
Yeah, man. I think there's a lot of not misinformation, but I think there's a information overload on like Instagram and stuff like that anyway. So this is a good time to actually like feed through it and like figure out exactly what works, because like you'll see all these girls like that have big asses who show their workouts, and like you're like, yeah, I don't think that's gonna work, and that's no way that works. So I think it's a good time to actually like be more realistic with actual glute training and glute programming and glute exercises and shit like that. So let's get on with it.
Yeah, honestly, I think training glutes is one of the easiest things in the world.
100%. I
It's
believe
super. The structure of training glutes is extremely easy. So
uh-huh.
I'll just break down how like I set up the structure because I have a lot of women that I train and like that's what their goals are. I do like a lot of small group PT work. So in that, like I do attract a lot of women who just really want like that good glute look and nice legs and good core, all of that good stuff, right?
Yeah.
So there's four things that I look for when I'm creating a glute workout. I'm looking for a squat pattern. I'm looking for a hinge pattern. I'm looking for a hip abduction pattern. And I'm also looking for some type of thrust pattern.
Mm-hmm.
So pretty much I just put a checklist on all four of those. And then I start to play around, just plug and play what exercise to fit for one person. Then the other thing I look at is, all right, I'm going anywhere from 2 to 5 sets of the exercise, depending on what I'm prioritizing in that day. Probably staying in a rep range. If I'm doing a heavy rep range, that'll probably be between 1 and 5. Somewhere that's like sub heavy, 6 to 12, and then burnout stuff, which is going to be a little bit higher, 12 to 25, give or take. Um, so that's just my structure when I put it together. That's my skeleton. It's been working like a charm. And like an example of how a workout can look, let's say I'm prioritizing the thrust pattern for the day. So that'll be the exercise that I kind of lead off with, just because that's what I'm trying to get the most strength out of for the day. So let's say we're doing barbell hip thrust as our main exercise and I'm treating it heavy. Let's say I give them 5 rounds going anywhere from like the 6 to 8 range with a couple working sets there, and then I'll do a couple back down sets and maybe like the 10 to 15 range. So you can be doing a total of 5 to 6 working sets, not warm-up sets, working sets.
Yep.
And we talked about that before. So maybe my next pattern is going to be a squat pattern. Now, I did 6 to 8 working sets on the thrust, so I could be looking about 2 to 3 working sets here. So on that squat pattern, maybe I choose the split squat, rear foot elevated split squat, and I usually play with like a lower elevation. It's just a lot more comfortable for a lot of people to get into. So, excuse me. So I'll do about 2 to 3 working sets. Maybe I'll stay in like an 8 to 12 range there. And let's say I chose barbell variation for this. So we got barbell hip thrust. We have barbell split squats. So now I could be looking at a hip hinge variation. Being I did 2 barbells, sometimes maybe I'll strip away and I'll switch it to like a dumbbell or something like that. So maybe we'll do like dumbbell 1.5 RDLs,
Ooh.
and then I'll stay in like 2 to 3 sets, 10 to 15 range, give or take. And then I'll finish off with like a hip abduction movement. If you have an abductor machine, great. If not, I'll do like some clamshell work for holds. I like to do a lot of side planks with hip abduction, things like that. Like hip abduction, you can't really train heavy unless
Mm.
you have a machine, but even then, like you really shouldn't push it that heavy. It's more like a time under tension, and it's more like a volume based thing that you do for it. And honestly, you just want to train that just for the mobility aspect of it to make like your squatting patterns and to make your hips nice and healthy. So
Yeah.
that's pretty much like how I set my structure to train glutes. And at the most, it'll probably take someone 45, maybe 75 minutes, depending on how heavy they're lifting for the day to get it done. Maybe even a
Yeah.
little less if I'm going for like a lighter day.
Yeah, I think for me, because I don't train, obviously I train women, but I don't specifically train like glutes. Like I'll have
Yeah.
patterns that emphasize glutes or like exercises that emphasize glutes. Um, but for me, I'm a bigger proponent of like my glute, for me especially, like my glutes. I don't know how to say it without sounding like
My glutes. We're about to
yeah,
hear about get
it's
Evan's
like it's like
glutes.
am I gonna have to say no Diddy after I say this? Gotta be more mature with my shit.
Evan saying how he's building his dump truck.
Yeah, I got a dump truck, bro. Like dude, man, I have to walk sideways through doors, like with my or ass first. Like
Ass first.
I walk out doors ass first. Nah, so for me, especially my glute training, like is very specific, and for my women is more or less the same. So like, I mean, things like rear foot, hip thrusts, and all that stuff are integral, like RDLs, like you're saying. Like I think those are very integral. I think those are very important. For me, I really specify like going heavy and making sure that you feel like the eccentric, the pauses, and the squeeze of the glute. And I think women especially like the feeling of feeling their glutes. It's
Mhm.
really like a weird concept because guys don't fucking really think about that, and they think it's weird. And it's true. It's just kind of weird as a man. But for me, like rear foot's a big staple in my program for building glutes. And I think people need to realize that your chest position plays a major role in your rear foot for glute development, especially. Um, I mean, you're gonna
Definitely.
get good development, especially when you're sitting up tall, but like it's not as intense as if you actually just drop your chest like 30 degrees, make sure your knee doesn't go over your toe, and you're really focusing on that glute,
That hip,
that
right?
position and that hip position. So that's really important when you guys are focusing on your glute. Hip thrusts are like the king of glute development. I think people should know that. But I think for hip thrusts, people tend to do a higher volume, but I think hip thrust is especially for glute development, should be trained heavy. Like I don't like
Definitely.
doing those things. Um, it's like I don't like doing like main compound movements or like a shit ton of reps, like 6 to 8. Really focusing on squeezing the cheeks at the top and making sure your position is good is like super important to me. But yeah, I'm not a big proponent of like doing a shit ton of volume like on glutes other than like women just like to feel it. I don't think that it doesn't have merit in growing the dump truck because obviously higher volume um is more ideal for hypertrophy. But overall size, like I think that's a 6 to like 10 range of like super heavy, like having like a RPE of like 8 to 9, like is a good range to kind of stick to, especially with your overall glute development. And like you're saying, hip abduction is good. I use hip abduction more for a warm up because, like you said, you can't really train that heavy. But it's one of those things where like if you enjoy feeling your glutes, I will give you 20, 30 reps of shit like that. Like that's fine. You know what I mean? But I don't think it has a necessarily like be in the program to take away from the other things that we need to do, like you're saying, like the hinge, the thrust, and like the squat patterns that you have going on. Like I think those are way more important than actually just doing a shit ton of volume to do a shit ton of volume, other than it's a sense of enjoyment, if that's making sense.
Yeah, the hip abduction is for me it's either at the beginning for warm up or right at the end for burnout.
Yeah.
So I either do it both there, but I do it more so for the mobility aspect. I'm just being able to build that outer strength there, which is just one of those things like taking it back to my powerlifting journey. Like I wish I didn't neglect that as much because I did run into hip issues from not playing into that lateral strength as much.
Yeah.
Um,
I think going back to the lateral strength, um I think lateral lunges are useless for overall glute development. What is your thought process on that? Because I think people like use like lateral lunges to build glutes, and I don't think it's necessarily like a glute building exercise.
it is, but it wouldn't be it's more towards the later end of the
Yeah.
list
Okay.
than it is because you a lot of people also when they do lateral lunges they hinge it a lot because they don't have the mobility to really stay upright.
Yeah.
So it does hit, but like all lateral movements, you're just not going to be able to load as efficiently than like a sagittal movement in terms of like the development process.
Yeah.
But in terms of like building hip strength is going to be just as key, and it's
Yeah.
gonna it's good to add in the program because it's going to help those sagittal movements so you can load those better over time anyway because you'll have more of
Yeah.
that stability.
Yeah, I think I'm not saying that is not useful at all. Like I think for obviously the other things that you're going to be able to use it for, like I think it's very important to have a good lateral like pattern. But I
Yeah, a
don't
good
think for
base.
overall development of like growing a dump truck in our topic that we have today, like it's on the very low end of being able to access the range of motion that you need to develop what you're
Yeah,
doing.
I can name 10 exercises before I would get to the lateral lunges to hit your glutes.
Yeah, I would do. That's almost like that's not dead last, but like I don't think that's like a necessary
Yeah,
staple.
for me it's
Like
somewhere in the middle.
yeah, I got you. I got you.
But also the key point too is glutes like frequency. So
Yeah.
you want to train glutes at the most. I tell people like 3 times a week is ideal. Two is a sweet spot as well. Once a week will do something, but for women they recover, especially catering this to women. Women recover a lot faster than men do when it comes to lower body work.
Mhm.
So 2 to 3 is an ideal mark for someone to hit glutes. So if we're doing the way I'll break up someone's structure in that is like you can have a heavier day, you can have a sub-heavy day, and let's say a lighter day, but not like high volume light, literally just dropping the load and just working more on like tempo stuff, or maybe not as aggressive on barbell movements, more like dumbbell, machine, kettlebell, body weight stuff, just for like nervous system purposes and working with general population making sure that they can recover from that type of stuff. So like glutes really get fun in the way that you structure it, especially when you start looking at, all right, I'm training my glutes 2 to 3 times a week. Maybe on day one of your program we're focusing on barbell hip thrust being the heavy movement. Day two of your program barbell hip thrust becomes like a secondary movement, and we do split squats to be our heavy movement for the day. In
Mhm.
day three, I'm doing barbell back squat as your heavy movement for the day. So like I can really get to play with it a lot, but I still stay within that structure of like your first movement will be between like that 6 to 8 to 12 range, or your second movement is going to stay between that 8 to 12 range, third movement like 10 to 12, 10 to 15 range, and
Yeah.
just kind of play from there. And just because 6 to 8 doesn't always mean like explosive heavy for me. It can still be like 3 second eccentrics, three
Like
second
tempo.
pauses.
Yeah, I
Like
got
I'll play with that. Even my 10 to 15 ranges, isn't just pumping away. It's like I still play with my eccentrics. I still play with my ISOs. I still play with my tempos because at the end of the day, I'm really looking for time under tension.
yeah,
Sometimes I'll even just like have things set up as like, all right, you're gonna do this for a minute straight, 30-second rest or something. So the big
yeah.
key with glutes is like it's kind of like in training chest in that motion. Like
Like the
the
feel it.
playing with the tempos, playing with your eccentrics, playing with your ISOs to really keep it under fire and making sure you're putting a lot of emphasis and focus on that muscle group.
Yeah, I think because we're getting close on time. I think the real question, and I think this especially goes for women because they enjoy this more than dudes. What is your thought process on mini band work for overall glute development? Like I use mini bands all the time for like just warming up or like just to feel like the movement, especially or like teaching tools. But what is your thought process on like using the mini band for overall glute development in any way, shape, or form?
In terms of actually like building glute size, it's not really not really at all. It's no benefit to it.
Mhm.
But the good thing about the band is one, it helps with knee tracking.
Yeah,
Two, it is a good way to create extra activation to get someone to bring awareness to the glutes so it can be worked out as good as like a warm up. Throwing some type of band exercise in there just to kind of create some blood flow. Like I kind of look at it the same way I would use a band pull apart, you know. So I use that. It's like the band pull apart version for for the glutes.
Yeah.
So
Now with barbell development, yeah.
yeah,
Now with barbell development, yeah.
I'll even do like mini band barbell hip thrusts just to kind of force you to drive extra tension into the glutes, but I don't use the band as like something that you should fall in love with and rely on because it's like there's no benefit in it that way. You know, so you won't catch me doing like, all right, we're gonna do 300 band hip abductions
Yeah.
as like your main stuff. Like I'll give you little shit like at the end, not even 300, but I'll just be like, all right, just you can do a band iso hold for a minute and pump out another minute of reps or something at the end of the workout just to give you this little extra burn just for people to kind of feel that sensation after you did all the heavy work. Or I'll start off the workout that way just to kind of bring some awareness to that area or get some blood going. But it's never the bulk of my workout. It's always like at the very beginning or very end just for awareness or warm up or burnout purposes at the very most. And then you won't see that band. Like we're hitting heavy reps, we're hitting quality reps, pauses, eccentrics, like the glutes need frequency, they need heavy work, they need volume work, but they don't need a bunch of like mindless weak reps, if that makes sense. You
Yeah.
know, like volume work doesn't always mean like sets of 75 and 150 and shit like that. Volume work is literally just like a lot of sets and reps with good time under tension and good load. So I kind of look at how much load did we move in a whole workout. So I usually try to keep people between like 10 to 13, 10 to 14 working sets of glutes. Now maybe I put four of those working sets in a thrust pattern. That could be a single leg hip thrust. I use a single leg hip thrust a lot.
I
I
do too.
maybe I did like five of these working sets in the squat pattern, and maybe I did like another three of these working sets in like the horizontal back extension or something like that. That's a go-to for building glutes for me. So
Yeah.
I look at, all right, what's the total load that we did at the end of this workout? How did we split it up? What did I want to be my heavy? What did I want to be my sub heavy? And what did I want to be like my lighter exercise for the day?
Yeah. So yeah, more of the story is that the bands are cute, but they don't do shit. More of the story.
Nah, they
So
shouldn't be the bulk of your training. Don't
yeah,
ever let that marketing get to you.
yeah, don't do that shit. So yeah, if you wanna if you wanna grow a fucking dump truck, lift heavy, make the main thing the main thing, and if you want to do the cute shit, do it in the beginning or do it at the end, or use it only for a teaching tool. I think that's like if anything needed to be pointed out, especially for glute development for the ladies, is that like the mini band isn't the end all be all. Do your training. That's
No, yeah, you have to. The glutes are a big muscle. Like it needs heavy training.
mm-hmm,
It needs resistance. It needs a lot of volume because of the capacity of how much glutes are, like just in size.
mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
you got to eat your calories, man. You got to
Oh,
eat
that
your
too. Yeah.
calories. Like that's the
Yeah.
bit we didn't get to talk about that because we were talking more of the training aspect of it. But in order for your glutes to grow, because like it's the same thing, it's a muscle, and it is
Mhm.
a large muscle. You have to feed it.
Yeah.
That's how it's gonna grow. You have to feed it. Like, don't try to eat like a bird and then going in here trying to do these big squats and these big split squats and
Expect
kettlebell swings and
right.
all this shit and expect that shit to grow. You won't even have the energy to move the type of workouts you need
Yep.
to even stimulate the glutes for growth.
Pretty
You'll be
much.
doing yourself a disservice.
Yeah. It's a yeah. Fucking you gotta eat to grow your ass. It's a weird concept to think about, but I think that's nails it on the head. It's a nails it on the head. You need to eat to grow just in general. And I think girls are scared to be like to gain weight, but to gain weight is the only way to group to gain like a bigger ass. Like gain it and cut. That's usually what fucking you have to
Yeah,
do.
and chances are like you have other things going on in your fitness. Like you could be training glutes and just dancing for the rest of your
Yeah,
cardio or
that's it.
something like that, or going on sprints or going on walks and stuff like that. So you'll have plenty other modes in your fitness to still help you stay in shape.
Yeah. Well,
That's it.
yeah, that's all I got. I think we nailed it on the head right there.
Yeah, man. Build that dump truck. Make sure you eat. Give your glutes a lot of frequency. 2 to 3 times a week is ideal if you're really,
Yeah.
really trying to pack some size. And don't be afraid to train in heavy. Just always with good form and good control, and focusing on good tempos. And trust me, this formula always works. It has not failed me yet.
Yeah.
Keep the movement simple. Seriously, keep it simple. Squat, RDL, hip thrust, play with variations of that. You got split squats, you got barbell back squats, you got lunges. Lunges are a big one. I didn't bring that up too much. You got many variations of RDL, barbell RDL, single leg RDL, dumbbell, kettlebell RDL, sumo stance RDL. Like there's so many ways that you can play with it. Just keep your movement simple. You only need like 4 exercises in a workout. Trust me.
That's it.
5 at the very most, but usually 4 is perfectly fine. Just make sure you get a lot of sets, get some good quality reps in there, and eat, and you'll build all the glutes that you need.
Yeah. Sure. Walking backwards through the doors. Ass first.
That's it. Just like Evan.
Yeah.
And on that note, guys, like, subscribe, set your notifications. Just never know when you'll need that dump truck to.
I just pictured myself walking backwards through a door.
See you guys on the next episode.